At my stepson's wedding, he called another man his only father, not me. I paid for everything: the venue, catering, even his suit. I got no mention. No head table. No thanks. But after the last dance, he handed me a folder and said, "You can settle the rest." I looked, then shredded the check right in front of him and left. I hope the photographer got his face. I loved that boy like my own, raising him, sacrificing for him, believing in him. Then, on his wedding day, he delivered a speech that erased every single one of those 18 years, all while I sat there footing the bill. The room fell silent, the clinking of glasses suddenly loud in the awkward quiet. My heart pounded, a frantic drum against my ribs, but my hands remained clenched in my lap, trying to stay composed as I watched the boy I raised look right past me. My name is Leo, and at 56, I truly thought I had a good life, a solid family. Not perfect, no storybook ending, but it was ours. I married Sarah when I was 39. She had a 5-year-old, a quiet, wide-eyed kid named Ethan, who clung to her hip and flinched whenever his biological father's name came up. That man had vanished when Ethan was 2, no child support, no birthday cards, just gone. So, I stepped in. Not because I had to, but because I loved Sarah, and I knew loving her meant loving Ethan too. And I truly did. I coached his little league, helped him with volcanoes for science class, stayed up with him when nightmares struck, and he didn't want to wake his mom. I never asked to be called Dad. He started doing that himself by the time he was 9. And let me be clear, I never expected a grand thank you or a parade. That's not why you raise a child. Still, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't immensely proud watching Ethan become the man he was, smart, driven, charming in a way I never quite mastered. He got into a great college, landed a solid job. I helped him move into his first apartment, bought him his first suit for interviews, co-signed his first car. I wanted to do it. I was proud. I felt like I'd done something right. That's why his wedding felt like a gut punch. The wedding was this past spring. Sarah and I had been empty nesters for a few years, and the planning became our new project. Or, rather, my project. Ethan and his fiancée, Chloe, had big dreams. A beautiful vineyard venue an hour outside the city, a live band, 5-star catering, custom flower arrangements, a drone photographer, the whole fairy tale. When they showed us the costs, Sarah looked nervous. I didn't. I just nodded and said, "I'll cover it." It became the running joke. Talk to Leo, he's the bank. I honestly didn't mind. Not at first. I'd saved for this. I always imagined walking my son down the aisle, maybe giving a toast, clinking glasses, being a part of his story. For months, it was spreadsheets, vendor calls, tasting menus, seating charts. Sarah handled the emotional side with Chloe's family. I quietly handled logistics. That was my style. But then, little things started. Subtle, like static in a clear call. Ethan stopped including me on planning calls. Chloe's mom took over hotel blocks and vendors. I was asked to transfer the band's deposit, but wasn't on the contract. I told myself it was just wedding stress. Then came the head table. Sarah casually mentioned I wouldn't be sitting with the bridal party. "You'll be at table 3, she said, flipping through a chart. "You'll have a great view, though." I blinked. "Wait, why not?" She paused, as if the thought hadn't occurred to her. "Well, Chloe's parents will be next to the couple, then her siblings, the maid of honor, best man. There just wasn't space. Ethan didn't want me up there." Sarah didn't answer. She just went back to writing place cards. That should have been my first real warning. Next, the invitations. I wasn't expecting some special title, but I was surprised when I saw the envelopes, posted by Sarah and Ethan. No mention of me. Not even Mr. and Mrs., just them. I joked about it one night. Guess I'm just the invisible man, huh? Sarah gave me a tight smile. You know how Chloe is about wording. She wanted it to reflect that it's Ethan's day. That night, I laid awake longer than usual, staring at the ceiling fan, wondering when exactly I'd become a background character in the life of a boy I'd raised like my own. Maybe it was silly. Maybe I was overthinking, but it nagged at me. Then came the rehearsal dinner. It was at a beautiful downtown restaurant, one I'd reserved and paid for. Private room, candlelight, personalized menus, all the fixings. Chloe's dad gave a speech, awkward jokes and heartfelt wishes. Her mom followed with a story about Chloe's childhood tea parties. Then Sarah spoke, warm, proud, glowing. Everyone clapped, glasses clinked. Then Ethan stood up. He looked around the room, eyes glistening. "I just want to take a second," he began, "to thank the people who made me who I am. First, my mom, for everything. For every scraped knee and bedtime story, for always believing in me." He turned to Sarah. She teared up. "And second," he continued, "to someone who taught me what it means to be a man, who showed me strength, humility, and how to love without expecting anything in return. He's not here tonight, but he's always been in my heart. My father, my real father." I froze. The room went still. I could hear the nervous clink of a fork. Sarah's face fell. Chloe blinked, unsure. And me? I just sat there, heart pounding, hands clenched, trying to stay composed. He went on for another minute or two, talking about how his biological dad had made mistakes, but was still the man who gave me life. No mention of the man who gave him piano lessons, who taught him to shave, who stayed up with him through high fevers and first heartbreaks. No mention of me. When the applause died down, I excused myself to the restroom. I didn't cry, but I splashed cold water on my face for longer than necessary. I told myself it was just nerves, a fluke. He'd make it up tomorrow. But the wedding day? That's when it all became undeniable. The morning of the wedding felt calm, eerily so, like the silence before a storm. I woke early, barely having slept. Sarah was already bustling, a silk robe fluttering, checking makeup appointments and hair times with Chloe's planner. I sat on the bed, sipping lukewarm coffee, wondering what I was even supposed to do. I wasn't walking Ethan down the aisle. I wasn't giving a speech. I wasn't in any pictures, at least not with the bridal party. I wasn't even asked to help the groomsmen get ready. A few weeks prior, I'd asked Ethan if he needed help tying ties, something we'd done for every Easter and Christmas, and he just smiled. "Nah, Chloe's brother is taking care of all that." Chloe's brother, the kid who once spent an entire dinner talking about NFTs like he invented them. Around 10 a.m., Sarah handed me a dry cleaning bag. "Here's your suit. Make sure it fits." I raised an eyebrow. "This isn't the one I had tailored," I said, fingering the unfamiliar fabric. It was charcoal gray, decent quality, but not the navy one I'd bought specifically for this day. She paused. "Chloe wanted a more uniform look for the pictures," she explained, already moving to her next task. "Pictures I'm not in," I muttered under my breath. "What?" "Nothing." I changed into the new suit. What else could I do? Make a scene? It wasn't my day, apparently. I was just footing the bill. At the venue, I tried to stay busy. I helped staff tape down cords, carried crates of drinks, adjusted chairs. Nobody asked me to. Standing still felt worse. Sarah was swept up in bridal prep, Ethan off with the groomsmen. I barely saw them until just before the ceremony, when I caught a glimpse of Ethan through glass doors. He looked good, nervous but sharp. For a second, pride swelled in my chest despite everything. I started walking toward him. He was facing away, laughing with the groomsmen. I raised a hand. "Hey, Ethan." He turned, saw me, and gave a polite nod. A nod like I was the valet returning his car. He turned back before I could say anything else. It stung, but I told myself to let it go. Maybe he was nervous. Maybe he didn't want to cry. Maybe there was a reason. I kept telling myself that. The ceremony was beautiful. Picture perfect. Chloe walked down the aisle to an orchestral pop song. Ethan's eyes welled up. I sat next to Sarah, second row, not first. Second, behind Chloe's extended family. I guess it made sense. They needed the front row for her parents, sister, aunt, maid of honor's boyfriend, and some cousin from Denver. But still, I couldn't help noticing. Speeches followed during the reception. Chloe's dad gave another toast. Ethan's best man told charming college stories. Chloe's sister read a poem. Then, right before dinner, Ethan stood and tapped his glass. I leaned forward slightly. This is it, I thought. He's going to say something. Acknowledge the years, the sacrifices, the man who raised him. Instead, he smiled and said, "Before we eat, I just want to thank the people who made this day possible. Chloe's parents for being so supportive and generous. And of course, my mom for being my rock and my hero." Applause. Clinking glasses. The DJ queued up soft jazz. That was it. No mention of me. Not even a vague, sweeping thanks. Just nothing. Sarah squeezed my hand under the table, but didn't look at me. I think she knew. I think she'd known for weeks, maybe longer. The final gut punch came during the photo slideshow. They had a massive projector screen displaying a montage of Ethan and Chloe growing up, then together. Baby photos, birthdays, prom, college trips, hiking, beach shots. A few made the room laugh. But as I watched, something nagged at me. I wasn't in a single one. Not one. Not even blurry in the background of a Christmas shot. It was as if I'd been edited out of his life completely. I felt like I was watching a stranger's wedding. After the cake and first dances, the DJ transitioned to party mode. I made my way to the edge of the dance floor, stood near the bar, nursing a club soda. I don't drink, haven't in 20 years, but tonight, I was tempted. It was there, between two empty champagne flutes and a discarded boot, that Ethan finally approached me. He looked relaxed, sweaty from dancing, still glowing. He clapped my shoulder. "Hey, I meant to catch you earlier." I turned slowly. "Yeah." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila folder. "This is all the final invoices. Catering, rentals, flowers, whatever's left. Shouldn't be much, just the remaining balance. I figured you could settle it Monday." I took the folder without a word. "And hey," he added, "thank you for everything. Seriously." He said it like a waiter dropping off a check. Then he gave a small nod and turned to rejoin the dance floor. I stood there, holding the folder while the music pulsed in my ears. The DJ had moved to an upbeat track. People were laughing, twirling, drunk on the moment, but all I heard was white noise. That's when I opened it. Inside was a printed spreadsheet, neatly organized. Every vendor, every remaining balance highlighted for convenience. A sticky note attached read, "If you can handle this before Friday, they said they'll waive the late fee." Underneath that was a check from Ethan to me for $2,000. Not even close to what was left on the bills, maybe a tenth. I stared at the check. I stared at his handwriting. And then, slowly, deliberately, I took the check between my fingers and tore it in half. Then in quarters, then into a dozen little pieces. I didn't say anything. I didn't make a scene. I just shredded it right there over the bar top and let the pieces flutter to the floor. I turned and walked straight out into the cold night air. No goodbye, no final word. I left the folder open on the bar. The last thing I remember was the photographer, camera still in hand, standing near the exit, watching. I didn't ask, but I hoped, just maybe, he caught the look on Ethan's face when he saw what I'd done. Because that was the moment everything changed. That was the breaking point. The drive home was quiet. Sarah sat beside me, still in her pale blue dress, her hair starting to come undone. The silence wasn't angry. It was heavy, like wet wool draped over our shoulders. We didn't talk about the check, the speech, or the folder. We didn't talk about anything. When we pulled into the driveway after midnight, she grabbed her bag and went straight upstairs. I stayed in the kitchen, turned on the tap, and watched the water run until it overflowed. Then I turned it off. I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that sticky note. "If you can handle this before Friday, they'll waive the late fee." It wasn't even the money. It was the assumption, the casual expectation that I would pay. And smile while doing it, like some butler they'd inherited. Over the next few days, the silence between Sarah and me calcified. She never asked why I left early. She never asked what happened to the check. I didn't volunteer the story. But something shifted. Subtle at first, she stopped making 2 cups of coffee, or turned off the hallway light before I made it upstairs. Over the next few weeks, it became undeniable. She began staying at Ethan's more often, helping with post-wedding cleanup, she said. Then checking in on Chloe while she adjusted. Then just crashing on the couch because it got late. I didn't question it. I didn't want to hear whatever answer might come. A month passed. Then 2. Thanksgiving came. No invitation from Ethan. Not even a courtesy text. Sarah spent it with them, smiling in group selfies that ended up on Facebook. I spent it with a frozen turkey dinner and a rerun of some football game I didn't care about. That was the fall, the quiet, slow crumble of everything I'd spent 2 decades building. It wasn't a dramatic collapse, not a screaming match or a slammed door. It was worse. It was slow erosion, a gradual fade, like being ghosted by your own family. And it broke something in me. I started spending more time at work. I was a regional operations manager for a logistics company. The kind of job nobody ever dreams of, but everyone depends on. I'd always done well, but now I buried myself in it. Extra shifts, late meetings, volunteering to train new hires. I even started working weekends, not because they needed me, but because I didn't know what else to do with myself. Sarah and I existed like two ghosts in the same house. We'd pass each other in the hallway with tight smiles and polite nods. We didn't argue. We just stopped sharing anything. In January, I came home to a note on the counter. I've gone to stay with Ethan and Chloe for a while. I think we both need space. Let's talk in a few weeks. No phone call, no conversation, just that. I stared at it for a long time. Then I placed it next to the fridge magnet and went upstairs. That night, I pulled out the old photo albums. Not the digital ones, real albums with thick pages and plastic sleeves. One had a faded sticky note, Ethan's firsts. First Halloween, first baseball game, first trip to the beach. All of them were there, and so was I. Behind the camera, beside him, pushing the stroller, holding the kite string. I sat there until sunrise, flipping through those pages. And that's when something shifted, quietly, internally. Because that was the first night I let myself grieve. Not for the money or the humiliation, but for the loss of a relationship I had given everything to and watched wither without a single thank you. It's strange, but that grief was clarifying. And when the sun finally came up, I decided I was done waiting. If I was going to rebuild, I had to start with what was left. First came the house. I cleaned it top to bottom, every room. I boxed up old things, donated what I didn't need. I took down the family portraits and stored them in the attic, not out of spite, but because I needed space to breathe. Then I made a doctor's appointment, something I hadn't done in 3 years. Then I joined a gym. I started eating better, waking up earlier. I cut out sugar and started walking every evening after dinner. Sometimes just to the corner and back, sometimes for miles. I lost 12 pounds in 2 months. By March, I'd enrolled in a weekend woodworking class at the community center. I'd always liked working with my hands, but never had the time. Now I made time. I started building small things, birdhouses, frames, coffee tables. My hands got rough again. My posture improved. My shoulders didn't ache as much. And for the first time in a long time, I started looking in the mirror and seeing someone I recognized. Then came the offer. My regional director announced he was retiring. Corporate opened the floor for internal candidates. 10 years ago, I might have laughed it off. But now, I felt different. I wasn't trying to impress anyone, wasn't trying to prove anything. I was just focused. I updated my resume. I wrote a cover letter that didn't feel like fluff. I scheduled a mock interview with a recruiter friend, David, I hadn't seen in years. And 2 weeks later, I walked into the interview in the same tailored navy suit I'd originally bought for Ethan's wedding. Still unworn, still perfectly fitted. I got the promotion. It came with a raise, a generous one, a new office, more travel, and for the first time in years, a sense of movement that belonged entirely to me. I never bragged about it, never posted it online, never even told Sarah. When she finally did text me in April to check in, I responded politely, briefly. No hard feelings, just distance. She didn't come back. I didn't ask her to. Ethan never reached out either. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe he did and didn't care. Either way, I stopped waiting. Instead, I kept building. I turned the old guest room into a workshop. I started selling custom wood furniture on the side. Small commissions at first, then a few local shows. It wasn't about the money. It was about putting something into the world that couldn't be erased by a slideshow. Something real, something mine. And the funny thing was, people noticed. Neighbors, old friends, even coworkers. They'd stop me in the hallway or knock on my door and say, "You look different, happier, stronger." One even joked, "You look 10 years younger." I didn't, of course, but it felt nice to hear. By summer, I was back to hosting barbecues in my backyard. Not big ones. Just a few friends, some music, good food, laughter that didn't feel forced. For a while, the house had felt haunted. Now, it felt like home again. That's not to say everything was perfect. There were still days when I passed the wedding photo of Ethan and Chloe on the fridge at work and felt the pang. Still moments when I caught a familiar song and remembered the slideshow. Still nights when I wondered what I could have done differently. But those moments came less and less often. Because slowly, quietly, I was rising. Not out of revenge, not yet, but out of something deeper. Dignity, clarity, self-worth. And as summer turned into fall, I started hearing whispers, quiet comments from mutual friends. Chloe's father's business wasn't doing so well. The apartment they'd rented above their means was becoming a financial strain. Sarah had moved into their guest room full-time. Ethan had taken out a personal loan. I didn't comment. I didn't reach out. But I did listen. Because the next part of the story, that's when things get interesting. By the time the leaves started turning and the wind carried that early bite of October, I'd been living alone for nearly 10 months. Sarah was still with Ethan and Chloe, or rather, in their guest room, playing what I imagined was some awkward blend of permanent houseguest and part-time mediator. She never officially moved out, never filed anything. But the longer she stayed away, the more obvious it became that she had no intention of coming back. Fine by me. I wasn't the same man who stood by the bar at the Vineyard, holding that manila folder and swallowing humiliation. That version of me had vanished quietly, sanded away over long walks, late-night woodworking, early mornings at the gym, and a few dozen quiet moments of painful clarity. But what replaced him? Well, that was still taking shape. I wasn't a vengeful person by nature. I wasn't the type to slash tires or air dirty laundry online. But I was methodical, patient, and I believed in balance. And things were deeply unbalanced. The people I had poured myself into, Sarah, Ethan, even Chloe to some extent, had used me like a step stool, a resource, a walking bank account with a quiet smile. And when I stopped serving that function, they simply edited me out. But the thing about being underestimated? It gives you room to move. The first domino fell by accident. One of my old college friends, David, reached out to congratulate me on the promotion. We met for lunch, just a casual catch-up over burgers and iced tea. Somehow we got onto the subject of weddings. He'd recently paid for his daughter's ceremony and was still seething over the hidden costs. When I shared a few details of my own experience, not naming names, just broad strokes, he leaned back and shook his head. "You ever get reimbursed?" he asked. I laughed. Not even close. Did they at least keep the receipts clean? For tax purposes. That stopped me. Tax purposes? Sure, he said. If you paid out of pocket for everything, you might be able to deduct certain vendor expenses, especially if your name's on the contracts. You still got those folders? I didn't, but I remembered what was in them. And that's when the second domino clicked into place. I went home that night and pulled out my desktop scanner. I still had the digital invoices from when I'd wired payments. Most were emailed to me directly back in the spring. I organized them into a folder titled Wedding Files and started sorting. And that's when I saw something odd. Two of the vendors, the photographer and the floral designer, had invoices that didn't match my payment records. I had wired $3,200 to the florist, but their invoice showed only $2,700 due. The photographer showed $4,100, but I'd wired $4,800. I emailed both vendors directly, just to confirm I wasn't imagining things. One replied immediately, yes, the actual fee was $2,700. We refunded the balance to the bride and groom after the overpayment. Refunded to the bride and groom. So, Ethan had been padding the vendor costs, charging me more than they charged him, then pocketing the difference. I stared at that email for a long time. That wasn't just disrespect. That was manipulation. It wasn't just forgetting to mention me in a speech. It was stealing. calculated, quiet theft. That's when I knew this wasn't just about a slideshow at a wedding. This was about who Ethan had become, and it was time to do something about it. But not loud. Not yet. First, I had to learn more. I reached out to a few people in my old circle. One of them, a retired accountant named Nancy, helped me analyze the rest of the files. Over the course of 2 weekends, we found nearly $9,000 in padded costs, fake add-ons, rounded-up invoices, duplicated charges that I had paid without blinking. And just like that, the story shifted. I wasn't just a forgotten stepfather. I was a mark, a target. But if Ethan wanted to play games with money, he was about to learn who taught him how to budget in the first place. The second phase came through an unexpected connection. One of my woodworking clients was a woman named Brooke. Sharp, professional, mid-30s. She ran a boutique interior design firm that catered to upscale apartments and small commercial spaces. After I delivered a custom coffee table for one of her clients, she invited me for coffee to talk collaborations. Over the next few weeks, I built 3 more pieces for her, each more intricate. Word started to spread. I launched a simple website. Nothing fancy, just a gallery, contact form, and price list. But Brooke featured me in one of her blog posts. And suddenly, I had emails from 3 different design studios asking for commissions. At first, I said no to most. My job kept me busy enough. But then Brooke asked if I'd ever considered going full-time. I've seen furniture guys blow up with less talent, she said. You have an eye for proportion balance. I know 2 investors who'd bankroll a small studio tomorrow if you were interested. I wasn't ready for that step. Not yet. But her comment planted a seed. Meanwhile, the whispers around Ethan and Chloe grew louder. They'd upgraded to a new apartment a month after the wedding, a downtown loft that looked sleek in Instagram pictures, but came with sky-high rent. Chloe had quit her job to focus on starting her own event planning business. And Sarah, from what I gathered, was paying for most of the groceries. I didn't ask. People told me. Then one evening in early November, I got a call from Chloe's father. We'd only met a handful of times. We weren't close, but he sounded frazzled. I hate to bring this up, he said, but I just wanted to ask, did Ethan ever repay you for the wedding expenses? I nearly dropped my mug. Excuse me. It's just he came to us last week asking for help covering some past due balances. Said he was short because he already paid you back. I just wanted to confirm. I paused. No, he didn't repay me. Not a dime. There was a long silence. I thought so, he muttered. That conversation confirmed everything I suspected. Ethan wasn't just entitled. He was actively lying to everyone around him. So, I got to work. I pulled all the padded invoices, refund notices, and wire records into a single spreadsheet, color-coded, annotated. I wrote a short letter, not threatening, just factual, and had a lawyer friend review it. Then I printed 2 copies. I didn't send them. Not yet. Because that wasn't the moment. The moment came a week later on Thanksgiving. I wasn't invited, of course. Sarah had posted pictures again. Chloe in a cream sweater holding a wine glass. Ethan carving a turkey with forced confidence. My wife grinning like she was part of some commercial for perfect families. What they didn't post was the fight that happened after dessert. I didn't witness it, but a friend of Chloe's sister DM'd me that night, saying, I don't mean to stir things up, but your stepson just got dragged across the table by his father-in-law. Something about money. I thanked her. Then I waited. 2 days later, I got a text from Sarah. Can we talk? I didn't reply right away. I let her sit in it. The next day, I responded, sure, come by Friday evening. And that's when the final stage began. The stage where I would reclaim not just my dignity, but everything they took from me without even blinking. Sarah arrived Friday evening just after 6 o'clock. She looked older, not aged exactly, just tired. She was still wearing the familiar coat I'd bought her years ago on a rainy trip to Chicago, but it hung looser now. Her hair, once meticulously styled, was swept into a careless bun. No makeup, no jewelry. She looked like someone living in a house that wasn't hers. I let her in without a word. She stepped into the kitchen and glanced around. The space had changed. New backsplash, refinished cabinets, handmade oak stools I'd built myself. She didn't comment. Just stood there, awkward like a guest in a stranger's home. Coffee? I offered. She nodded. I poured her a cup, black, just how she used to like it. We sat at the kitchen island, the silence stretching between us. She finally broke it. I heard about the promotion. I gave a polite nod. Yeah, it's going well. More silence. Then Ethan told me about the invoices, the refunds. I raised an eyebrow. He told you. Well, he admitted some of it after Chloe's dad confronted him. You know how he gets when he's cornered. He panicked. That wasn't panic, I said calmly. It was calculated. I paid $38,000 for that wedding. He skimmed nearly $9,000 of it, then handed me a folder like a waiter dropping a bill. She looked up, her eyes glistening. I know, she whispered. I should have stopped it. You didn't stop it, I said. You watched it happen. You let him erase me, Sarah. Her lip quivered. He's my son. And I was your husband, I said, my voice steady. For 18 years. She didn't argue, just nodded, eyes full of silent apologies she didn't say aloud. I stood and walked to the counter, pulling out a large envelope. I slid it across the island. She hesitated. What's this? My formal separation agreement, I said. Drafted, notarized, and signed. She blinked, stunned. You're divorcing me? I'm finalizing what you already started, I replied. I didn't. Yes, you did, I cut in. The day you moved into his guest room and never came back. She reached for the envelope with shaking hands, pulling out the papers. As she flipped through them, she stopped. You're not asking for anything, she said, confused. No alimony, no house claim, nothing. I shook my head. No, but I am keeping everything I already built. You walked away from it, Sarah. I'm just closing the door behind you. She stared at the pages like they might dissolve if she blinked too hard. I'll give you until Monday to sign and return it, I said. If not, my lawyer files it anyway. She didn't say anything for a long time. Just nodded once, stood slowly. Can I at least explain? You had 10 months, I said gently. You made your choice. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. With a final glance at the home she no longer recognized, she left. I locked the door behind her. The next part was quieter. I waited 3 days, long enough for the fallout from the Thanksgiving fight to simmer. Long enough for Sarah to tell Ethan what I'd done. Long enough for Chloe's father to start asking real questions. Then I mailed the second copy of the invoice packet to Chloe herself. I didn't write a letter this time, just highlighted all the padded costs and included the email confirming which refunds went where. I never heard back directly, but 3 days later, I received a very short, very nervous voicemail from Ethan. Hey, can we talk? I didn't realize you were keeping all that stuff. I think we might have. I just think we need to clear the air. I didn't respond. 2 days after that, he showed up at my office. He actually had the nerve to bring coffee, like this was a casual drop-in. I met him in the lobby. He looked frayed. The confident glow from the wedding was gone. His dress shirt was wrinkled, eyes bloodshot. The kind of face that hadn't slept properly in weeks. Dad, he started. I held up a hand. Don't. He stopped, shoulders sagging. I'm not your father, remember? I said quietly. You made that very clear. He shifted uncomfortably. Look, I messed up. Okay. I thought I could make it back before anyone noticed. Didn't think you'd keep receipts, I finished. Track payments. Follow patterns. He winced. You knew who I was, Ethan, I said. You learned from me. You counted on me being meticulous. You just didn't think I'd use it against you. I wasn't trying to hurt you, he muttered. You were trying to steal from me, I said. And erase me in the process. He looked down. Chloe is furious. Her dad's threatening to pull out of the startup loan. Sarah's moving out. I know, I said. I also know you've maxed out 2 credit cards, I continued. And that your name's not on the lease for that loft. Chloe's parents are the guarantors. His jaw tightened. Did you dig into my finances? No, I said. You told me everything I needed to know with your behavior. He looked like he wanted to scream or cry or beg. I didn't give him the chance. You wanted to clear the air, I said, stepping back. So, here's your air. I'm done. No more checks. No more second chances. No more emergency transfers. You don't get to lie, steal, and call me family in the same breath. He swallowed hard. So that's it. That's it, I said. You wanted a life without me in it. You got it. I turned and walked back to my office. I didn't look back. He didn't follow. In the months that followed, I rebuilt everything. The divorce finalized quickly. Sarah never contested it. I kept the house, the savings, the retirement accounts. She moved into a small condo near her sister and stopped posting family pictures. Her Facebook quietly deactivated. Ethan and Chloe's marriage didn't last much longer. From what I gathered, through the grapevine, not by prying, Chloe discovered he'd been borrowing from her accounts, too. Their split was messy, public. Her father pulled funding from the startup. And last I heard, Ethan had moved back in with a college friend and was working contract jobs to cover his debt. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. Because real revenge isn't about fireworks. It's about removal. It's about letting people fall into the holes they dug for you and walking away while they flail. Meanwhile, my side business thrived. I expanded the woodworking shop, hired a part-time assistant, and started selling pieces through a local gallery Brooke introduced me to. My full-time job remained steady, but I'd found joy in building something with my hands again, something that no one could take. The final message I received from Ethan came on a gray April morning nearly a year after the wedding. It was an email, short, unapologetic. I still think you overreacted, but I guess you did what you felt was right. I hope you're happy. I didn't reply. I printed it out, framed it, hung it in my workshop just above my workbench. And every time I see it, I smile. Because yes, I am happy. What would you have done in my shoes?